Welcome to the media show. I'm your host, Nick Paladina, and today we're going to have a very exciting topic, and that's basically how to get to 1 million views. So we need somebody who's a subject matter expert who did receive, or excuse me, he sold over 4 million copies of his book. He was a co-author of the book, The Millionaire Next Door, now a co-author of the book, Richer Than a Millionaire. Let's bring in a person who can think in terms of million, the Honorable Bill Denko. Bill Denko, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And you were a professor of marketing, were you not, at State University of New York in Albany? Where we're going to be talking about marketing today, because marketing, I had one person who was a top producer who told me, he who markets best wins. And this guy was in financial services making $3 million a year. He took me to his home in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. It was a 40,000 square foot home, like 40,000 for his house. And he had about a 3,000 square foot guest house in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Well, with that, we also have another person who's going to be joining us who thinks in terms of millions. He's actually a member of the Mega Society, which is the 1 out of a million on the IQ group range. So maybe he can help us in this endeavor. Let's bring in from California, Rick Rosner, who can think in terms of million. Rick, good to have you here.
Nice to be here.
Where we're going to put your thinking cap on, because what we found out in the area of media, one of the key metrics is to get to 1 million views. In other words, or sell 1 million books. All right. So working backwards, I guess, Bill, and since you were teaching marketing, see, I have my own thoughts of marketing. I think it changes all the time. And so it's not a static science that you can just delve into and say, okay, here, there's principles that are the same, but then there's some things that just keep moving all the time. And I've had some people that are very successful in marketing. And once you're very successful, they make millions of dollars and then they don't talk to you anymore about how they did it. Okay. So I'm serious. No, it's all of a sudden, okay, I figured it out. You didn't. Too bad. I've made my millions. Too bad you didn't, type of thing. But when you're teaching marketing, what sort of advice did you give students about, or were they even looking at views? Were they looking at views? Were they looking at selling products? What basically were you going over when you were teaching marketing courses at university level?
Bill? When I would teach a course on new product development, I'd start off with a quote from a product manager that says, "The world got along before you came along. So what are you going to do? What is your unique selling proposition going to be to make people want to buy what you're buying?" Okay, so it comes down to this big funnel. We have a huge market, or a potential market, that's unaware that you even exist. And we want to make at least initially aware, then have them gain an interest in what you're doing, and then have a desire that says, yes, I can see how this could work for me, and then ultimately take action and bring your product to the cash register or click on your viewer on a weekly basis, and make them really loyal customers. So we go from this great unwashed set of people down to the very customer. So it's a huge funnel, and but you have to start with getting that initial awareness that you even exist, and get that awareness, interest, desire, and action. And unless they take action and actually see, there are so many people who will say, yeah, I love you. You're doing a great job, but I'm not going to watch you. I'm not going to buy what you're selling. It's not that they hate you. It's they just don't see any particular motivation. Now, if I could just add one more thing. Years ago, I used to teach this 1 credit hour marketing MBA class, and the only requirement was to get published in a trade magazine. Now, how do you do that? I said, well, what is your interest? Is it automotive? Is it in personal health care? Whatever the interest might be, there's going to be a trade magazine. For example, in car wash business, there's something called the Car Wash News. Okay, it's as simple as that. And you say, well, who the heck is going to be reading this? Well, people who own car washes, and the editor is looking for essays, 250 words or 500 words, showing this is something new in your industry. This is why you ought to be thinking about something this way. My point is, as soon as you get your essay out in print, you automatically become the expert. They say, wow, look at this. Danko has something in print. Maybe we ought to be seeking out his advice on what to do, and then maybe we ought to be going to the person who publishes that article and creates this awareness that they're the expert. They go to the trade shows of the car wash industry or the pharmaceutical industry or whatever industry it might be, and just make yourself known as the expert. And it's called, really chumming the waters. You put the bait out there saying, I have something of value, and then have the customer come to you asking, can I be your customer? I mean, that's ultimately what we want. It's very demeaning to beg, please be my customer, right? We want the customer to come to us with a natural affinity. And so this idea of getting something published, a 250 or 500 word essay as this 1 credit hour MBA class was really an eye opener to the students of what it was like to not only build a resume of their own, but being known as an expert where people would seek you out. So, but we have more to say about mass media too, but those are my perspectives about marketing and how it can be done successfully.
Okay, Rick, what are your thoughts about that? Because a lot of the TV producers I work with around the country, they go, well, we got to increase our viewership. And so I give them certain metrics like 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1 million. What are your thoughts about how do you
I have a lot of thoughts. I'm going to start with my
good.
friend Adam Carolla, who has a theory he calls the yummy phase, which is that unmasculine men who aren't grown up, still have their childhood tastes. They like chocolate. The grown-up men, manly men, learn to drink black coffee, learn to drink whiskey, learn to smoke cigars, stuff that you have to learn to like. Immature men, according to Carolla, like chocolate and sugary and, stuff that's delicious. And I would say that right now, with all the stuff that is out there for people, that we're all in the yummy phase, that we like candy and we look for candy. I wrote for Kimmel for a dozen years, and he comparing recent late night talk shows to Carson, from 1962 into the 80s. Johnny Carson was really the only reasonable thing to watch in late night, and he didn't offer much what I think of candy. He would come out, he would tell jokes, he would interview people. Sometimes he'd line up a bunch of people on the couch like Burt Reynolds and Don Rickles, and they'd have great interactions, and that would be turned into candy from these very funny, spontaneous people. But generally, his show had a standard format, and people watched it because that was the only decent show that was on. And it was a treat when he did candy, which is he'd do Karnak. He'd dress up as Aunt Blabby, or he'd do a bit. He did very few bits. When I started for Kimmel tried to do about 7 bits in his monologue. A bit is candy that you've done extra work. You've put together a skit, or you've gone out on the street and messed with people, and it's more delicious than just a guy telling jokes. And we're surrounded by deliciousness. Food tastes better now. Our social media gives us information that's personally tailored for us. It learns what we like, and it gives us that. And to stand out in a world that's just feeding everybody all this delicious stuff, you got to be more delicious.
Okay, so the thing is, you actually have it now. What about the tactics of being able to get to 1 million views? In other words, at least my experience working with the media, you have, if you, in other words, to get people viewing, there are certain places that you can advertise: television, radio, newspapers. Then today we have modern ways to get to people: emails, Google, websites, like what we're doing on this channel. We have our own TV channel, which is kind of unique. That once you have your own TV channel, I watched our views go up from thousands to over 120,000, literally in 2 months. So what I'm saying, Rick, what about the tactics? Are the tactics now changing because we have access to different, different tools that didn't exist anymore? Same with Jimmy Kimmel. In other words, he sits on one of the major networks, but the major networks are now facing, I believe they're going to be facing enormous competition by these other networks that are being created. And they're going to eventually.
The broadcast networks are losing up to 10% of their viewers a year because viewers now have vast alternatives.
Right.
Streaming. I mean, why would you? I mean, I love late night, but a lot of people, offered the choice between a guy telling jokes and watching, a $200 million Marvel movie, will stream the Marvel movie.
Right.
So the numbers that equal a popular show, I think Carson in the 70s, 80s had like, this number doesn't even sound right. I'd have to look it up, but maybe 30 million viewers a night.
Right. Right.
And now a successful late night show, back when the population was half of what it is now a successful late night show, if you pull 1 million night after night, you're doing well.
Yeah. Well, I saw when Larry King went off the air. Okay. The reason he went off the air was he was pulling 800,000 viewers a night. In other words, that wasn't good enough for to keep him on the network.
It would be good enough now, I believe.
Pardon?
I think that would be good enough
yes, now. It would be good enough now. Okay, and see that's what I'm saying. The metrics have changed because all of a sudden the dominant ABC, CBS, NBC are not going to be able to dominate the market anymore. I don't see how they can survive.
Well,
they have a big lead.
I think as a general principle, you have to hit people where they're soft.
Yeah,
which is you have to hit them with either a novel medium, like we know from looking at the results of the 2016 and 2020 elections, that people are susceptible to propaganda that hits them via social media,
right.
Not so much via older media like television and radio, because we're used to thinking of ads on TV as BS.
Right.
But, so you got to find, and like I've been on Twitter now for 12 years, and Twitter used to be the place. No more. Facebook used to be the place. MySpace used to be the place. That doesn't even exist anymore. Or maybe it does, but who knows? But you got to find the, Insta works, TikTok works.
Instagram.
You got to jump on what's new that people haven't built up an immunity to.
But does it have to really be new? That's what I was going to ask you, Rick, because I'm glad to pop in and everything. I was actually in the middle of another meeting and all. But one of the things that I've noticed is that there are some shows that are classic shows, or at least the people were known as classics, but all they've done is they have kind of repurposed themselves or repositioned themselves. Like one of the biggest, most popular judges was Judge Mathis. And now he's got Mathis Family Matters, which is literally just showing how in his own house, he is not really truly the judge of that house, because that's kind of the punchline of the show is that, he's kind of not in control, because there's one commercial scene that's kind of funny because I'm assuming it's his granddaughter, and she's sitting there having pizza and ice cream, and he's going like, I can't believe you're having pizza and ice cream. And she's basically looking at him like, yeah, I think that this is a good dinner. And he's like, well, I can't really say nothing because, I'm just going to break down and do the granddad thing and let you have your pizza and ice cream. And then I saw that Lynn Toler has started another new show called Commit or Quit. and definitely that is a whole marriage kind of show, and I guess she's going to be the judge as to whether you are going to commit or quit in that particular show and all of those lines. And Nick, you're going to get a kick out of this. Apparently that has already run into some actual legal kind of consequences, because Judge Lynn Toller is asking the couples to complete their marriage license before, I guess, coming on the show, and someone actually had the audacity to say no. So definitely that is what is going on. And apparently this couple, 36 and 41, have been dating for 6 years with no ring in sight, and they met on social media, and definitely I guess they were having to feel this whole request in order to get on the show and all along those lines. And I guess they were saying, no, that's all right. We don't want to do that and all of that. And they've also got an episode about marriage in prison, which actually aired as well, and all of that. So, that's the other interesting thing that happens with some of these shows, is they have these different and I don't know what Rick had to deal with when he got on the different shows that he was on, but these different contracts that they have to fill out, including, I think, sometimes saying that they were actually not going to appear on other shows. And also, I'm sure there are some other rules that go in there as well. I'm sure some folks might be interested in that aspect of what goes on also, because I do remember hearing some people that, even told made up stories when they went on to certain game shows. And then there were some that might have even been fed answers, and there's been all kinds of crazy controversies in that space. But I'd love to hear your take on that as one who's been in it.
Yeah, right.
I went on a game show and sued, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I sued them because they give you 4 possible answers. And I sued because the question that knocked me out, the true answer, the actual correct answer, wasn't among the 4 possibilities, because they screwed up their research. And in suing them and losing, I found out that the multi-page contract that I signed said that they weren't obligated to include the correct answer.
Well,
Really? Okay. Well,
After my lawsuit, they even strengthened that clause of the contract.
yeah, but it also brings me to what Bill Denka was saying. And the thing is, this exists in startups. I always say, what's your USP? And then the startups look at me cross-eyed. And I say, okay, what's your unique selling proposition? If you have any startup in the world, they have to have something unique relative to the world. But Bill, doesn't that exist also with television shows? I mean, I see a lot of the shows there, but I'm going, okay, what is it that you're unique about? What is it that you bring to the table that other people don't bring? Otherwise, like one of our top rated shows right now on our network, because I check our metrics, it occupies probably 8 of our top 10 slots, is Russia, China, Ukraine. Russia, China, Ukraine, of all things. Okay. It hits there. I mean, it's like 8 of the top 10 shows all on the Ukraine. I'm not sure how unique it is, but we do have people that are in Ukraine who are actually doing the show. So it's being broadcast from Ukraine. But it's more unique relative to what else is out there. You follow what I mean? Yeah. So I guess that's one reason. In other words, you need to be unique, but you don't have to be that unique. You just have to be more unique than anybody else. Yeah, Rick, what are your thoughts?
You can, in current, mostly scripted TV, it's not a unique selling proposition because so many shows are doing it, though it's unique in time. It's something kind of new. Is extreme perversity.
Extreme perversity.
I'll give you a terrible example that I just saw last night, but before that, I'll give you this general example of showing people barfing. Used to be a rarity,
right?
But now a lot of shows just find that it's an easy, kind of edgy, gross out thing to have a character get bad news or be drunk and barf or barf on somebody else. It's a cliche. It's become a cliche in the last couple of years. And last night I was watching a scripted show on Amazon Prime called The Boys, about superheroes who are corrupt. And they had a scene where there's a guy who could shrink like Ant-Man, and he's in a gay relationship, and his partner says, "I want you in me." and this guy shrinks down to, I don't know, yay big, and climbs inside the other guy's butthole. And they had built a gigantic room-sized practical butthole, not a CG butthole, and they had this guy climbing in like a big fake, and that's extremely perverse. And this is on a mainstream streaming service, it's
Okay,
Yeah,
so yeah, Bill. I guess
right.
it could be
I was just
off the chart perverse and get some
checking this
attention
out.
for your
I
thoughts.
just
Yeah.
remember Newton Minow. He was head of the FCC under President Kennedy, and his famous quote is that TV is a vast wasteland. And I think, Rick, you're making that point. this vast wasteland of just about all this stuff that goes on in the name of entertainment. So, I mean, that's why TV, I mean, there's something for everybody on TV, I suppose. But what is the viewership like on TV nowadays? I mean, there's such a fragmented market.
Also, when you see these people that are into this perverse stuff, I'm not that sure if that's the type of person I want watching our shows anyway.
No,
I
I
know, I know
understand
that people are into. And look, if your mentality is that, boy, it's exciting to watch somebody barf. That's what I need to do all day. You only have X amount of hours, 28,000 days in your life, and X amount of hours that you can spend in your life. And I'm going to spend an hour watching somebody barf or a half an hour. Is that the type of? I would tell my company, is that the type of client that you want? Granted, there are people out there that want to watch it. Don't get me wrong, and they can go ahead and watch it. But is that the type of person I want watching my shows?
But do you know some of the most popular shows that are out there right now are actually, and I think Rick would agree with this as well, are actually, and it kind of comes back to what you're talking about of unique selling points. They are actually regurgitations. Speaking of barfing and everything, they're regurgitations of old shows. Because if you actually look and you were to check some of the statistics, I don't know the exact figures, but I know that if you go to like OWN or some of the other networks that are out there and all of that, they are showing in NCIS, Criminal Mind, Law and Order, but I'm not talking about the current Law and Order. I'm talking about Law and Orders from about 6, 7, 8 years ago and all of that. But they are still very popular because people either like the actors or the actresses. They like the storylines, and some of those storylines are very much tied to the news because they might have, like, I remember one episode that I was watching recently. I think I was watching either last night or the night before. Was a kind of play on what is going on with some of our churches, in the sense of there was a whole case revolving around a minister who was also involved in that whole pedophile space and all of that. But it was one of the popular thing that was a Law and Order episode, and there was another Law and Order episode that was dealing with the whole concept of cheating and taking hits out on people and all along those lines. But these are shows that are from 8, 9, 10 years ago, but they're still very popular, so much popular that some people have watched enough of the episodes that they can almost tell you the lines before the actor says the line and all of that. So that's what I've observed. And I think there's even people that watch them so much that they have whole dialogues in social media as to what happened, why it happened, and what should have happened, because they even want to change the storylines and all of that. Isn't that something that you've seen, Rick, as one that's been involved in that writing space?
Yeah. So, all right. So people don't watch barfing for the sake of barfing. Right. They're looking for novelty and insight. Mm-hmm. And barfing is a token of, if we're going to show you this, then maybe if we're going to show you a guy climbing into a butt, maybe we'll show you other stuff that you haven't seen before, and that stuff that may, offer like a more insight into the world as it actually is in its heaviness. That the concept of The Boys is that superheroes could be super evil while pretending to be good, and so it's like House of Cards meets the world of Marvel, and so that is somewhat insightful enough to keep people interested. And then you look at the broadcast shows. CBS has the oldest demo among the broadcast networks, right, and you can see it in their shows in the lack of novelty. Mm-hmm. That I believe there are maybe 10 million people who are seniors who are still in charge of their affairs, but are starting to lose mental acuity. And CBS seems to be targeting, with their repetitive formulaic shows, older people who need less challenging shows.
Yeah, but also that's because there's a shift in demographics. We have 10,000 people in the United States turning age 65 every day. So by the time we review this next week, we'll have another 70,000 people that just turn age 65, Rick. And the studies I've been reading, more and more people have leisure time until Social Security goes broke in 2034, which the latest stat, they will go broke and they're going to reduce everybody's benefits 20%, but that's another story. But they have more leisure time. So this demographic group is spending more hours watching and consuming media. So you have a space which is more and more consumption that's taking place, and looks like it will continue to take place as that demographic shift increases. And then when it comes to content creators, and I'll just pick on CBS because we were working years ago with the president, Paul Franklin of CBS, about show development. Well, they have a little bit of a problem. It's almost like it's a structural problem. CBS, how many shows are they going to show this evening? They have
between 3 and 6, depending on whether they're half-hour shows or
right. But because they're limited to only 7 o'clock, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 format, at least on CBS, they can only produce that many shows. So on Paramount Plus, their other streaming service, they can park unlimited amounts of shows.
Nick, you're raising a question that actually it's actually come up a couple of times on, ironically, Dr. Kelly's shows that he's been doing and everything. Because while it's true that the median age is a certain age range for the majority population, that is not always the case for the minority population, because actually the most common age for Hispanics as of now in this year and everything is 11. That's the common age. It's 27 for African Americans and 29 for Asians, whereas white Americans, it's 58. Sure. So definitely that also raises another question as to who's being targeted, because a lot of these TikToks and a lot of that are actually targeting a lot of the younger and also the minority population, because those are the ones that are actually watching these things on a regular basis.
But TikTok and Instagram are 10 seconds or less and you're out. It's really not a show. Okay, in other words, you have to realize it's like a short commercial, really. And YouTube is down. I think the average time people watch YouTube is 3 minutes. I mean, so if you do a show on YouTube, just realize you got to have 3 minutes, and that'll be your show. Which is hard for us, Bill, because we do our introduction. It takes us 3 minutes to do our introduction. Show's over, guys. We'll all go home. We did our YouTube show.
Look at the opening theme songs of TV. They used to, like the Rockford Files, probably ran 45 seconds, maybe more. Now it's down to a second. Some TV theme songs are just a tone, like Lost's theme song was, and a lot of them are even shorter than that now.
Yeah. Well, you can even fast forward through the theme. They allow you to skip the intro. They press the button, skip intro. Yeah, Bill.
Yeah. Right. Better Call Saul has a very short intro music. It's certainly in less than 30 seconds. But anyway, let me tell you how we got, up to 4 million purchases of Millionaire Next Door. And I really have to hand it to the genius of my mentor, Tom Stanley, the senior author. When we were developing the book as just some mere academic researchers back in the early 1990s, the question we always had was, how can we make everybody make it known that, this is really good research? I mean, who the heck wants to buy a book by a couple of academicians? Tom Stanley said, what we got to do? We got to get the biggest media outlet possible that we can handle, the Wall Street Journal. They put a story on page B1 of an October 1996 edition of the paper. I forgot the exact date. But as soon as that article hit, we were getting calls from the BBC, Radio Australia, the Los Angeles Times. The media frenzy was so intense, but we had to go for that very large target initially, because what if we went with some local newspaper? The Wall Street Journal would say, wait a minute, this is old news. Why would we want to cover it? This local paper already got the story. But we specifically said, go for the biggest target possible and then let the frenzy begin. And you couldn't stop it. It was like a chain reaction. So it can be done. We did it.
Right. No, I certainly understand the power of that type of media, because the first time we're putting on these events all over the country, Bill, actually mainly in Florida and New York. In New York, we couldn't afford to put an ad in the New York Times. The minute we put the ad in the New York Times, our attendance in these seminars quadrupled. We'd fill up the Grand Central Hyatt in New York. We'd fill up the Garden City Hotel. We'd fill up all these places. And not only that, we had people fly in from Los Angeles, Minneapolis, Atlanta to go see it, and then created franchises. And I was asking Stuart Kirshner, who was my partner, I was going, what's going on here? He says, well, a lot of people read the New York Times. So Sunday, it had to be Sunday business section, second page. Okay.
Yep.
Quarter page ad, not half page, because quarter page ad gets you the most bang for the buck. Half page, you're getting more people, but you're paying a lot more for those extra people that show up. And all of a sudden, I'm making $400,000 a month net. And I'm going like, you got to be kidding me. And then so I went and I checked the demographics of the New York Times. They had like 1.7 million in viewership. I mean, readers. And I was going, you just can't beat the numbers that they had, and putting it forward. But it took us literally, I think we were doing presentations for a year, and we call them the fish wrappers, the Gannett newspapers. We put ads there. It took us a year to build up the chutzpah to write a check for like $40,000 or $100,000 to put ads in the New York Times. Well, see, you got in the Wall Street Journal. If you got somebody write for you, that means that's even better.
It is.
Yeah.
Source credibility.
That's almost free advertising.
It is. It's better than advertising.
I know, right? Because you get the article. How much do you need to pay $100,000 for it? I don't know. Yeah, go on, Rick.
You guys are touching on a tactic, which is or a principle that producers, news show producers, other once daily show producers are always short of ideas. If you approach a producer with a fleshed out idea to fill an hour or 15 minutes, you're going to you'll get some people to bite.
Yeah, but don't you have to know the producers first? See that's one of the disconnects. Like sitting here in Raleigh, Durham, I work with some of the celebrities out your way in LA, and they said, well, all the talent's in Los Angeles. In other words, it goes within 10 miles of Hollywood. What about North Carolina, where we live? No talent here.
You still have some newspapers left, and they still need to fill pages.
That's true.
There's newspapers, there's television, and I would actually, and I think I know who you're talking about that made that statement and everything, but there's also a lot of talent even in the sense of actors and actresses and singers that are right here in the Carolinas and Virginia and a number of other places. So I think that's a very myopic view to think that you're in New York or LA and that all the talent has migrated there without saying some in their home area, and some have even moved away from those areas to those areas. There are some people that have gotten into those areas and got into the rat race of New York or LA and Hollywood and been like, nah, I'm going back to my home and create my own empires and things of that nature. Speaking of which, Nick, you will be glad to know, I wanted to share this news with you earlier, but since it's the media show, I'll share it now. But I mentioned it on our other show that Sean, who is our military guy, will be launching his show this Thursday. But one of the things that he told me he did is he went to one of those. Is that Sean,
the podcaster guy?
Sean, the podcaster guy.
Yeah, okay, right. I know he is.
Sean, the podcaster guy, will be launching his show on our network from No Worth to Self-Worth and all of that. The first show has actually already been uploaded and ready to go for Thursday at 2 p.m. And he'll give us regular content.
What's the show going to be about?
He has seen people that have literally gone from the top of the mountain to the bottom and back and forth and
that
all of
happens.
that. So that's what it's the title from No Worth to Self Worth. So it's going to be trying to encourage people that
Yeah.
if they've hit the bottom, that they can still be able to make it to the top, or at least make it to the middle level. So who knows? Maybe you'll have Bill on one of his shows in the near future and all along those lines.
Well,
But I
I
know
don't
the
think
first show
Bill
he's
has
actually
ever
got
seen the bottom. Bill only went straight up.
yeah,
You
Bill
know?
only went straight up.
I
But what I'm
started
here to
at the
tell you
bottom.
is
I
that
don't know if he had a bottom.
Yeah, I don't know
If
if
you
he had
sell
a bottom.
4 million copies.
what I was going to tell you is that Sean went to the podcasting festival and he was telling the people about Pod TV and the Roku. And this is even before we arranged to have his first show on this Thursday. And he was telling the people there that we are the future of television. And he was definitely encouraging people to learn more about Pod TV. So even though we were not at the Pod conference in Florida, he was, and he did a good job of representing us, because apparently he was just bragging on us left and right after his appearance on the news show, and now he's getting ready to get his own show.
He said we're the Netflix of podcasting. I don't know what that means, but
Is that a compliment or not?
I don't know. I don't know right now, because Netflix, as you know, took a big bath.
Well,
Their stock and their thing just fell like a rocket. For the last 10 years, I've been following them, have their books and stuff. They were the fastest growing stock on the New York Stock Exchange. In other words, if you put $1 into Netflix, you would have $4,000. It was just amazing how they kept making money. And then this year, for the first time, they're projecting they're going to get 2.5 million more subscribers. They were down 200,000 subscribers, and their stock just took one big bath, Bill. And part of it is the competition. Now you have Paramount Plus, you have Amazon Prime, you have Acorn. I subscribe to all these things. I see that come up on board, and I'm going, the industry that they're in, which is movies, not podcasting. See, we're in podcasting, not movies. Okay. That industry right now, Bill, is really competitive. You can go to Disney Plus, Apple Plus. I mean, and they charge a premium price. They're like 20 per month. The rest of them are like 10. So what happens is they've lost 2.5 million subscribers this year, and their stock just took a bath. Yep. But I think, it's like everything. I think they're at the right time at the right place, but now they've peaked. In other words, it went straight up and then you peak, if that makes any sense. And for them to break through and go forward is going to be real tough with their metrics. And of course, I don't follow I'm sure their business plan is proprietary, which in our case, we're not even close to peaking. We're like,
we're never peaking.
I can't even tell you how many viewers we add every month, because once we got our Roku Vimeo channel going, it was you're just adding viewers. And also, in my humble opinion, it's much easier to add viewers than to do what I do for a living, which is to bring in $1 million a week in new asset under management.
Well, you also got.
I would say I'd rather get 1 million viewers. I think.
But Nick, you also got to remember that there's this lovely thing that I'm sure that Rick is very much aware of, and maybe even Bill is aware of it as well. But I definitely know it quite well. It's called creative accounting, and part of the creative accounting is that let's just say that somebody was. Because we used to do this all the time in festivals. But let's just say that somebody was at a festival that had multiple concerts going on at the same time. So there are multiple stages and all along those lines. And we can even use the TV example as well. But I'll just go ahead and use the concert example. So let's just say that there's a rock band playing on one stage, a polka band playing on another, and I'll pick a jazz band on another, and a blues band on a fourth one. So that's 4 stages. I've gone to all 4 of those stages and everything. According to the creative accounting that goes on in most of those venues, I am now 4 people, because I have been
that's right.
each time that I had that venue and all of that.
Okay, yeah, you're right. And also, when it comes to bait and what was called clickbait, which I heard is clickbait, which is big on the media. There's a clickbait going around in terms of this guy he's promoting. He gets 50 billion views. Okay, and here's the reality: there's only 8 billion people in the world. Right. So that means his views are being double counted. Now, but his clickbait was, I'm going to show you how to get 50 billion views. Well, let me tell you something. He lines up people all the time, including myself. I signed up for one of his to listen to how you do it, because I really want to know how you get 50 billion views when you have a world of 8 billion people. it's mathematically possible because you have the same person watch it over and over again. But it does seem to be more toward the baiting aspect.
You only need 7 according to my 6.5 according to my math. So if there's 8
Well,
billion people in the world,
I haven't gone down the rabbit hole far enough yet. I'm still in the rabbit hole. You know, the first person, then they upsell you to go to the second person. I'm waiting for them to do. You want to learn more? Write your $5,000 check. No, somewhere along the line, I'm waiting for them to put the hey, you got to pay money if you want to learn the next part. So far, it hasn't happened. But baiting and clickbaiting, you know, are ways that you can actually attract more views. You know, I mean, it's just the nature of the beast. So
and you can also attract more views by the people that we're going to have on. Like I've just found out because she's been on the show before, but on this coming Wednesday on the online dinner party, we will have Deborah Driggs on, and y'all are going like, who the heck is a Deborah Driggs? Well, Deborah Driggs is a former Penthouse playmate. So you need to put that out on our marketing tools and all of that. Former Penthouse playmate Deborah Driggs will be returning to the online dinner party because she's actually done this whole thing about like the whole notion of being a sex addict and a number of other things that she has now gotten away from. So she's a motivational speaker and all of that. But yes,
motivational speaker.
So she'll be making a return trip on the online dinner party on this coming Wednesday. Yeah. But you know, we'll probably just do the whole former Penthouse playmate thing, and I think she's been in some movies as well. But definitely, she'll be making that return, and that could be a clickbait because if you put it out there that she was a former Penthouse person, and everybody would probably be like, probably just joining to see if she still looks like a Penthouse playmate.
Exactly,
Only several years ago that she had that title, and she may have aged gracefully, or she may not have aged gracefully, but you'll have to come and watch to see. Actually,
one of my consultants says you got to put bait out there, you got to put clickbait, and then they said you got to collect email addresses.
That's something we do not do a good job of. Yeah, collecting email addresses is always a good thing. I was actually just having a conversation with a friend of mine about an event that they do fairly regularly, and that's one of the things I was telling them, because sometimes you also need target markets and all of that. Because like if you're going to do a fundraiser, and that's what somebody that's doing a fundraiser, I always think it is good if you actually set a target amount, whether that's 5,000, 10,000, or whatever. It can even be 500. But I have seen even on Facebook that some people will be doing these fundraisers and you don't even see what their target goal is and all along those lines. But Rick, it seems to me, is one in the TV business that if you're going to do, say, like a United Negro College Fund or a what was the one Jerry Lewis did, multiple muscular dystrophy and all of that, you need to have a target amount and all of that. But is that something that you've seen? And do you think that some people that do it currently in social media have no clue about that, and they have no target amount, and they're just hoping that you're going to drop them some change?
Well, all the metrics are compromised now. Like the Nielsen ratings, which used to be everything, are a mess now because of people's viewing habits. That for a while, Nielsen wasn't even measuring viewership during the shows; it was measuring during the commercials, which led to, and I don't know how they're doing it. And plus, you've got you've different ratings like Today plus 72. How many people watched it in the 72 hours after it was first broadcast? Right. And during the golden age of Twitter, 8 years ago, YouTube, 8 years ago, say, I was in the top 5 in the world in the number of fake followers I bought. And Avril Lavigne, like set all these records for viewers of her videos on YouTube because her fanatical followers just bought her hundreds of millions of views.
Right.
It's a little harder to manipulate it now, supposedly, but there's still all kinds of manipulation. You were talking about Netflix. Netflix is famous for not being transparent about its viewership or its algorithms, how they determine what show gets another season.
Right.
Well, I mean, and that raises the other question that I've brought up on a couple of shows, not just here on the network, but even in some of the places that I've gone to, whether that's LinkedIn or a number of other things, is that like you said, Rick, Nielsen's was supposed to be the kind of way that folks got their ratings about TV shows. Arbitron was what it was supposed to be for radio and all of that. I have yet to see, and I've asked a couple of people that where they are getting theirs from, one that is actually doing consistently, and I mean, they might be doing it here and there, consistently rating the live streams and the podcast. One, as Nick has said, there are tens of thousands of those out there, so it might be hard to get those ratings. But unless you're one of the big boys like a Joe Rogan or somebody like that, I'm having a hard time even getting concrete amounts because you're oftentimes in various sources and all of that. So it's kind of hard, and I don't think anybody has created a podcast / live stream rating system as of yet, other than those that are, like I said, the big boys that are out there that have like some major network behind them, like a Joe Rogan or some of the other ones that I could name, even like a Rush Limbaugh or somebody like that.
Well, you know, and that's been always a problem for our network, is collecting the demographics. Like I said, on LinkedIn, Facebook. Facebook gives us like a weekly report, but doesn't break it down. Vimeo right now does the best report. It'll tell me who's watching which shows, how many watch in the aggregate, and which country they're watching from. So where some of these other ones like LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, you send things out and you just really don't know how many people are watching the show. You just don't pull in good demographics. And then I always wonder how many bots are watching it. Okay, very important. And then Elon Musk, as I'm concerned about bots, he jumps up and says, well, I'm not sure I want to buy Twitter because I think, 10%, maybe more of the people that are watching are just robots.
Well, I have bad news for you. I have bad news for you, Nick, and for Elon. But I have a friend whose show I've appeared on a couple of times. She's definitely in that whole conspiracy theory kind of mindset and everything. And there are other people with conspiracy theories. She's not sure that Elon Musk isn't a bot because she's trying to figure out whether Elon Musk was actually born in South Africa and where he came out of, because apparently he came out of nowhere as far as my friend Betty is concerned and all of that. So she does this thing called Community Connections. It talks about everything from retribution. Getting retribution in terms of from civil rights and slavery and things along those lines. And it definitely talks about some other kind of pertinent issues. But I know that several conversations, and she will even admit to being a conspiracy theorist. She's going like, where did Elon come from? He popped out of nowhere, and she would argue that he might not even be from here. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, well, one of my consultants, and Bill, you may be familiar with him, he said that I should get this particular book. I should go look at this particular blog. Maybe you know about this, Rick. Backlinko blog. Are you familiar with that?
I do not. No.
Okay. The other thing he wanted me to do was, here, I bought this book. It's called .com Secrets. Okay.
The .com Secrets.
And then Ogilvy on advertisement. Are you familiar with
Ogilvy?
Ogilvy, right.
Ogilvy. I'm familiar with Ogilvy.
Yeah,
they're a major advertising agency.
I have his book on my shelf here.
Oh, really?
Right here.
Can you show that? Because I just bought that one. And the thing is, that's it. That's the one I have. Right? Yeah, that's a pretty good book.
It's a classic.
It's a classic. It's very principle oriented.
Yeah.
Book.
I'll tell you when it was written.
Hey, Bill and Rick, how relevant do you think Marshall McLuhan's book was? Because he wrote books about the whole masses and the media, and that was even before the 80s. That was like the 70s and everything.
Yeah,
but
since he was, there weren't as many books about that, so he owned the niche where with his message, the medium is the message.
Right, that was the book, right, exactly.
And people, he was famous for 15 years for a book that probably few people read. Woody Allen put him in Annie Hall.
Mm-hmm.
And there was another book of the era, Future Shock by Alvin Toffler.
I have that book.
I think the point was that the future is going to be crazy. And since there weren't that many books on the field of futurology, he owned the field for, 10 years or more.
Yeah.
Now, I think there are 800 scripted shows on U.S. television, which is it's easier than ever to get a show on someplace, not on streaming or network, but like I decided to put a show on YouTube. So I hired my buddy to film another friend and me just arguing it with each other, and we just threw it up on YouTube for for no money, and not that many, like 300 viewers, but anybody can do it now.
Mhm.
And in fact, having a produced show is now part of a standard television pitch. You used to walk into a pitch meeting with a sheet of paper. Now you walk in with like 8 5-minute segments doing scenes from the show you're pitching. It's like a highly expanded farm team system.
But you bring that and you said 800 scripted. I would argue that with YouTube series, because there are tons of YouTube series. I've actually got some friends of mine that have also created different YouTube series as well. There's probably close to thousands of YouTube series and all along those lines, because whether it's actors with actual serious acting skills, or whether it's just Joe Blow and their friend that want to be on TV, there are a number of those that are created. And every once in a while, you may get a Blair Witch Project kind of a show that actually gets picked up or has some tremendous success outside of just being a YouTube series. Because like you said, I think you said you had about 300 views on that initial watch, and some of them might even have less than that, but then you've got some others that might get tens, if not tens of thousands, if not millions of views, depending on what the shock value is or what the series is about, because some people are also just looking for good content. I mean, shucks, Nick, we were talking about that young lady that was on, and she was just going around talking about her dates and all of that, and I think she was out of either Texas or California, and she had all kinds of views last year, and probably still has those views, even though last time I heard she was trying to become a airplane pilot or something along those lines, because I've not been watching that series, but we definitely had conversations around her and her success out there to the west of us and all along those lines. So, and you see some of those people on Twitch as well. So they have these brilliant ideas and they decide to create a show, and some of these shows have a tremendous amount of success.
Yeah, but how sustainable is the success? I mean, we have something called the product life cycle,
Right.
where the introduction, the growth, maturity, then decline. The trick is to have something what is called the scalloped product life cycle, where you can reinvent yourself on a regular basis. And that is, well, of course, that's the trick, right? Reinventing yourself. Because look at Top Gun Maverick right now. I haven't seen it, but I saw the original Top Gun. But last weekend, I don't know, $300 million. This week, look in the Wall Street Journal today, it's down 32% on week 2. And, it's going to continue. It's still doing well. It's still the #1 movie. But there's a certain novelty initially, and it's going to be fading. A year from now, the movie's going to be, available on Netflix,
Well,
or something common.
Well, that's what you're saying, Bill, is like the product life cycle of Netflix itself. In other words, I'm looking at the product life cycle of Netflix, a good investment, 10 years ago, because you would have bought the fastest growing stock in the New York Stock Exchange. But now I don't see where they're going. In other words, the product life cycle, unless they reinvent themselves, is at the end of their life cycle because of too much competition. Disney Plus, Apple, Amazon, blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden, without reinventing themselves, I don't know where they're going to go. And they had to reinvent themselves several times.
Hey, Bill, and everybody, I hate to tell you this, but just to try an experiment, because I've heard that expression used a couple of times, including in TEDx talks. I just typed in, since you used that phrase, Bill, reinvent yourself. And as soon as I typed in reinvent yourself, I've already found 4 TEDx talks from 2018, 2019, 2019, and 2021 that are talking about just that. And apparently they've had some amazing views and everything, because the one that was out of looks like Buckhead, which would be, I think, Georgia and everything, Jay Morrison, and he was talking about how to reinvent yourself, and he had a bunch of views. And then some young lady also was having a lecture about reinventing themselves. So this whole reinventing yourself can also possibly get you millions of views. I don't know if it's going to get you millions of dollars, but it might get you millions of views.
Look at IBM as an example. I mean, the creator of the mainframe, and in the 1960s, it was a hugely profitable company. And then it went into the doldrums for 20 years. And they just recently reinvented themselves by saying, we got to get into the cloud. We got to get more into consulting services and software development and not get away from all the hardware. And now IBM is a very, competitive company. with legitimate services, and it's been around for not 100 years, but
5% dividend almost.
a 5%. Yeah. So I mean, it's a good investment. They reinvented themselves, and I know 20 years ago people were saying, "Oh, IBM, they're not going to be able to compete with Apple and Microsoft." But well,
Hey Nick, I
They're
think we would like some.
Rick,
Hey Nick, I know we're right at the hour, but I think we would like some of these numbers because that Jay Morrison, How to Reinvent Yourself, that was the 2018 one, has 100,000 views. The one that Kirsty Perrin did, which is 2019, has 21,000 views, and the one that Janine Drive, it looks like their name is, from 2019, has 4.7 million views and all of that. So just these kind of concepts as to reinventing yourself and all of that. And one of the other ones has 3,000 views from 2021. So maybe we got to have some shows about reinventing ourselves, and we can get these kind of views on the network, because those are some pretty good numbers.
Yeah, Rick.
All right. One principle you should remember when you're making stuff is that everybody's already seen everything. You have to go through what you're doing and knock out all cliches, all old ideas. Like, if I'm watching a movie and somebody sees a love interest, for the first time and walks into a wall or does a pratfall, I'll turn it off, because that's an old, used up idea. And I know that my time will be wasted because nobody squeezed out all the old stuff, and I'm not going to see any new stuff. Everybody watches stuff 20 hours a day. You really have to work hard to bring people novelty, and if you do, you'll get views.
Right.
Yeah, we're gonna try to get those views. I think Nick's gonna try to get us all out of here. Speaking of views, I think we need to get some views about the movie people love, which is popcorn, because apparently there's a shortage of popcorn in the movie theaters. I was gonna bring that up and everything as well, because there's a shortage of popcorn in the movie theaters. So we got to find a way to get some popcorn on our network as well, because there's a serious shortage on that popcorn. But we want to learn how to be richer than a millionaire and all of that. Bill, can you tell us how to be richer than a millionaire and not sell popcorn?
yeah, by being charitable.
Yeah.
We have so many resources. There are so many people who are better off than we, that they could use our talent, our time, our money, our food. In fact, I have a couple of scholarships that emphasize that very thing. One that I'm very active in is named after my parents, who grew up with nothing but had everything in terms of love and giving. And so, that's what being richer than a millionaire is. Money is transitory. Money is good. It's like oxygen. Don't get me wrong. But how much oxygen does one need? Okay. But anyway, we can talk more about that.
Yeah. It's a good book, and it complements the other one, The Millionaire Next Door. Yeah. Which is also.
And that's another thing about reinventing oneself. My colleagues at the university always say, whenever you do a new research project, don't just rehash the old. Build on it, and incrementally present something new to the marketplace. Yeah, and that's what this attempt was.
Yeah, when's Rick's book coming out? I want Rick's book.
Yeah, Rick, where's your book? A billion views.
Okay. First, I've got a book. It's about a dog who's got a genetic defect that makes it a super genius, but. First, I got to get a TV series to build a platform to get the book deal.
Oh, all right. Yeah, the book deals are kind of tough to get, especially with the major houses. Of course, you can always publish on Amazon. That's not
like one of those characters.
Then I sell 3 copies. So.
The characters on Futurama. Isn't there a smart dog on that? I don't know.
I haven't watched. I don't know. Probably.
Yeah.
As Rick said, everything's already been invented. No, it's already been on the media before. You just got to tweak it a different way.
In the book of Ecclesiastes, there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah, it's all the same. You just got to show it a different light, right,
That's
Bill?
right. That's right.
Everything's the same. Just
No,
got-
Bill, there is something new under the sun that we haven't got to. I've said this on a couple of shows, and we'll say it again as we go off the air and everything. But we've got Jesus' birth in the Bible, and we've got the whole years of his miracle up to his death. We don't have anything in the Bible about his baby years. So the baby years have not been covered. So that is a mystery that exists in the world. So that is a mystery that exists. It might be in those scrolls that nobody has found yet.
unless you read the Gnostic Gospels or the Apocrypha, then you'll see it in there. So with that, we want to thank everybody for watching the media show. We'll see you all next week. In the meantime, we're going to help the producers get their million views. Until then, have a good week. We'll
That's
see
right.
you. And the 70,000 more viewers next week as they turn age 65. All right. Take care. Bye.
Perfect.